Hello and a very warm welcome to the late-breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, today previewing the Chinese Grand Prix coming up this weekend. First Chinese Grand Prix for 5 years. Sam, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Honestly, it's been that long. We've never blooming done one on this bloody podcast. We're nearly on episode 400. Isn't that crazy? It's mad. Harry, you've turned up for at least 7 of those shows. How does it feel? You're here for one.
I was here for the last one, actually.
Oh, I know. I just like having a cheeky gig.
Come on, guys. I'm a regular on this podcast, not a guest, as some people have called me. Yeah, absolutely mad that we've never done a Chinese GP preview, considering how long it's been on the calendar. But we, as a podcast, we are but young.
Early thoughts on the Chinese GP? I bloody love it. Can't wait. Buzzing.
As long as it doesn't deliver the absolute howler that we had for the 1000th one and does what it normally used to do.
Yeah.
The irony of that, right? The irony of celebrating the 1000th Grand Prix, and it could have been the most boring Grand Prix of the entire season.
Tell me what...
Fine, as long as it's not race 1000.
Yeah, tell me what happened in that race. Go.
There was a pink and black camo car at the start.
Alex Albon went from the pit lane to 10th.
Oh, Ben, with the fact. That's why
the only reason I remember is, do you remember at that time F1 had like this...
I know the edit.
Awful,
yeah.
Graphics. There's an Alex Albon one where he gets driver of the day with like a glint from one of his teeth as he smiles. That's the only reason I remember that he went from the pit.
I think I kind of missed the dogs in the videos they used to put out.
That was a weird time, wasn't it?
It was weird, but with Chemical Brothers playing in the background and these dogs driving F1 cars with the big googly eyes they used to put on them, I'm kind of for it. Bit bizarre, though.
I've still got those GIFs saved somewhere. I need to find them again. They're so
Bring
good.
Those out.
The guy with the Ferrari mechanic with his eyes popping out is excellent.
Formula One really went down a certain avenue just for like 6 months, and then they went, we can't keep this up.
Good. I mean, I like that song, to be fair, but the dogs
musical interludes from Harry. It's good to have you back.
You're welcome.
I didn't anticipate going down this path when we started off the podcast, but hey, usually I can't guess where we're going to go, so that is par for the course. But coming up on today's episode, bit of F1 back and forth. Coming up later on, who's under pressure for the Chinese Grand Prix? Mercedes claiming that Japan was an encouraging weekend for them. Our thoughts on that and what they could possibly achieve this weekend. But we'll start with previewing the Chinese Grand Prix. And not only is it the Chinese Grand Prix, it is the first sprint race of 2024. Which we're all very excited about. Harry's managed to find the Alex Albon gif, which is great.
If you're watching on YouTube, folks, you can see the one he's replaying over and over again. There you go, he's showing the camera.
Unintended YouTube exclusive. First race at China since 2019, first sprint race of 2024. We've already spoken a bit about the drivers not loving the fact that this has been one of the venues for the sprint races this year, given the amount of time we've been away from the track. Given that a few drivers have never raced here, Sam, and in some instances like Lando Norris and Alex Albon, George Russell, they've only raced here once, and that was race 3 of their F1 careers. Does that lend itself a bit more to a potential surprise result, or do you think this will go as standard?
Isn't that absolutely crazy that even drivers like Lando Norris and George Russell and Alex Albon, who feel like they've been around for God knows how long now, feel like proper solidified, drivers, they're not young rookies anymore, have only been here once, and it was only by a mere hair that they snuck into doing this race as well. That is absolutely crazy. Surprise result, 100%. If you could put a little cake together of ingredients that make a surprise result, then this is going to be, a Paul Hollywood handshake moment of the best cake that you could come out with. You've got a country that we've not been to in God knows how long, in a time where climates are forever changing, and that is going to be impacted onto a circuit that's been completely relayered, resurfaced, so we don't know how well the cars are going to run here. We don't know what the tyres are going to do here. We don't know if they're going to overheat. It's going to be cold. We're not sure. That combined with the fact that, of course, you only get one practice session before action actually begins. It is competitive, of course, on top of the fact that we've got a sprint race here, never had one before, and so many drivers haven't been here before or not been here in such a long time. So it's such a crazy mix of who knows what's going to happen. That yes, the chance for ridiculous results, I believe, is sitting in the region of high and possible. What might happen? I imagine that one of you might predict it in our bold predictions, which we'll come up with later, or you can guarantee we'll get it all wrong and Logan Sargent will win the race, and it'll be so frustrating. But yeah, I think it could be wild.
I don't think I'd be frustrated about that.
I mean, I'll be annoyed that I didn't predict it.
Yeah, I can let that slide though. For that
True.
result, I'll allow it.
We'll get a point if Logan Sargent now wins the Chinese Grand Prix.
Great.
So none of us actually gain an advantage over the other, making it kind of pointless.
Hey, just like this podcast.
Kind of pointless.
Can't disagree with that. Harry, your thoughts on whether there could be a bit of a surprise this weekend?
I mean, of any of the races this year, or this has got to be up in the top 3 for potential mishap, right? Given the amount of unknowns. The last time we had this race, Max Verstappen was a 5-time race winner and nothing more.
And he'd never had a pole position in F1.
There you go. Washed Verstappen, as he was known back then. Yeah, look, I'm not saying he's going to be automatically terrible this weekend, but yeah, limited practice, as you mentioned, on a track where these cars have never run. And I've not looked at the weather forecast, but China often has some questionable weather.
I'm looking as we speak.
Quite a few wet races there, so that could be thrown into the mix. But even so, China doesn't need a wet weather to make it a good race. But there's just it's not a circuit where it's difficult to overtake, easy to overtake at China. I don't know. It just feels like this could be a nice little recipe for a good weekend of F1. To be honest, I mean, we don't like the sprint anyway, as it's been well documented now. But
speak for yourself, mate.
But even without a sprint, say we have 3 practice sessions, I still think it could be a bit of a mixed up weekend. So yeah, it's definitely gonna make things interesting. You've got to be quick out the box on Friday, and that's gonna be difficult to do. It's gonna be a bit, and not that I'll be up watching it, but it's gonna be a busy FP1, I imagine. I think a lot of the teams will be out straight away and stay out on track for most of the session, because they'll need to gather data they need to gather data that they won't have, and more so than they would on a ordinary sprint weekend, because they have previous data now for pretty much everywhere. So yeah, could be an interesting one.
I've just looked. Moderately breezy with a 25% chance of rain.
There you go.
Weather with Sam. That's great.
That's our new game.
Great.
Yep. Replacing F1 back and forth immediately. In terms of sprint weekends, usually sprint weekends haven't actually coughed up that surprising results, in that Max Verstappen has won 7 of the 12 sprint races that we've had so far, which for Max Verstappen's records isn't actually that high, but you do have to realise that 2021 was the first year of sprint races we had where Verstappen was less dominant and Hamilton and Mercedes were far better than what they are right now. And 2 of those races that he didn't win in terms of the sprints happened in that year. So actually his record since 2022 has been pretty much as good as his record has been in other races. And even where you could say that there have been surprise results in sprints to this point, so you could point to George Russell in Sao Paulo, or you could point to Sergio Perez in Azerbaijan, and you can claim they're quite surprise results. But actually, in both of those instances, they also won the Grand Prix itself. So it wasn't that they won a sprint race and it was completely against the run of play and Verstappen then went and won it the next day. The sprint race was actually indicative of what was going to follow in the Grand Prix itself. The only real, I guess, surprise win we've had in a sprint, at least from my perspective so far, was Piastri in Qatar last year. And even he had good pace in the Grand Prix itself, but that was probably the one outlier, I would say, where a sprint has kicked up a result that was completely unexpected compared to what we saw the following day. I will say, I do agree with you, though. Here, it might be a slightly different scenario in that we do have a real lack of relevant data. And teams are going to have to get on with it very quickly, as Harry said, in FP1, because if they don't, what's your next option? You don't have one. There's no room for a driver going out there and crashing within the first 5 minutes. There's no room for a team having some sort of electronic glitch, which means they can only get out with 10 minutes to go. That is going to cost you, not for just the sprint quali that's coming later on the Friday, that will cost you all the way through the weekend. you will really struggle to catch back up as a result of that. So yeah, the importance of if a team doesn't get it right in FP1, they are in a lot of trouble. My instinct still remains that it will be quite standard, just in terms of the way it goes, because again, sprint races haven't coughed up anything massively different. And actually, I went back to 2020 because Shanghai at this point can almost be viewed as a new circuit, right? It's a returning circuit, but it's been a long time since we've been there. And if you go back to 2020, when we had a lot of different tracks on the calendar that hadn't been featured for a long time, or in some cases were completely brand new, in all those instances, pretty much, we still had a standard result. So if you think about Mugello, Nürburgring, Imola, and Istanbul, they were all essentially new for 2020. Hamilton, who won the championship, also won those 4 races. So it's not like they massively, the only exception was Sakhir, which Perez won, but it's not like it kicked up massively different results. So my instinct is still it will be relatively standard.
Yeah, I think you make a fair point to go back to those newer tracks. And the thing that I've been looking at to see if this is going to be eventful or different or a bizarre Grand Prix weekend is actually, which I mentioned last week, is more looking at the materials that have made the situation we're in now. For example, the new track resurfacing. This happened when we went to Istanbul back in 2020, and the same thing happened when we went to Las Vegas, of course. It was a brand new track surface. And the other two things that culminated in making quite an eventful weekend was colder temperatures. Now, it won't be as cold as it was in Las Vegas at nighttime, and it's not going to be as wet by the looks of it as we had in that Istanbul Grand Prix in 2020, but it is only going to be about 17 or 18 degrees air temperature in Shanghai, which means the track temperature is going to be even lower potentially if there's not a lot of sunshine going around as heavy breezes. So there's every chance that tyres aren't going to be able to heat properly. This new track surface is going to be very, very slippy. And I do think that situations like this favour two groups of people. It favours the experienced heads, those who have been there and done that. They've done it before. The likes of your Fernando Alonso's who have been through every single scenario that you feasibly think of on a Formula One track. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, those people that have kind of been there, they've done that, they've got the job done. Equally, I think it favours risk takers. In a scenario like this weekend, where a brand new Grand Prix, one practice session, there's a chance to really jump and take advantage of a lot of chaos for a lot of people. I think you've got to go guns blazing. I think if you play it safe, you try and be a follower, you don't be a leader, it's very, very quick to sit there and go, oh, there was an opportunity there for us to get a car into the top 10 and we normally wouldn't. So for a team like Sauber, if they can get their blooming pit stops put together, or a team like Williams, who have come off the back, as you said, of losing a chassis and having a DNF and barely finishing a race with 2 cars this season, this is a real chance to make an impact on the point standings. If they can go above and beyond, try something different and be the first to master these really tricky conditions. I just think that if someone's willing to make the bold choice, we could really see something surprising happen.
Of course, many won't have seen a Chinese Grand Prix before. The first and second sectors, largely quite medium to high speed corners. And then sector 3, a massively long straight over 1 mile long. Do you think based on that, Harry, we might see some differences in setup? Do you think some might go more directed towards that sector 3, that really long straight that it is important to get right? Or might others sacrifice a little bit to be quicker in the first 2 sectors?
Yeah, I guess this is a question of whether you set your car up for qualifying or the race, because qualifying you would want, or you'd want higher downforce for that for the 2/3 of the lap where you need it, and then obviously on the big long straight anyway you get DRS, so that alleviates really the need to take downforce off your car. But then you could be a sitting duck come race day, so it's an interesting one. It's not one you get very often. It's not a situation we get that often in F1. Like you have Baku, where that probably applies. You don't want to put too much downforce on your car because you'll be a sitting duck on that big long straight. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. And once again, it's one they've not experienced with this. They'll obviously have all the data from the previous races here, but these are completely different cars now. So, for those who've never been here before, it's going to be one that you, like I said, you've got to come out of the box ready to go, because if you get it wrong, there's no time to fix it really, as we go straight into sprint quali. And yeah, you need to be on it and have your setup ready to go. I mean, they do so much sim work these days that I'm sure they do, but do have things ready to go. But there is that risk. So yeah, there could be a big difference. I mean, we saw even the variation in Japan with Lance Stroll and
Yeah.
Most hilarious radio message of the year so far. Definitely could win an LB.
It's a contender.
Definitely a contender. But even there, and it's not the same, but there's quite a long stretch of straight as you go down towards 130R, which is a straight now for F1 cars. And obviously they set his car up more for the first and second sectors. And he suffered in the race because he couldn't overtake a Haas on a straight line. So yeah, it's clearly something they're battling with, and it definitely could be the case here.
Yeah, and like you say, it's they managed to go in different directions at Japan despite having 3 practice sessions available to them, and here they're only going to have 1. And I kind of hope, because a lot of the time you will see FP1, you've got cars all over the shot in terms of where they're going in terms of downforce and versus sort of straight line speed. And then I think as FP2 and FP3 come together, cars will often come together almost to sort of agree on a consensus of what the setup, the ideal setup looks like, unless you're Mercedes, in which case one car sets up for Monaco and the other sets up for Monza.
Standard.
Yeah, exactly. But I think at least here, with 1 practice session, it might not leave the time. You might have to make a very early decision and then almost stick with it. I'm hoping that's what we see, because that could lead to something very interesting in the races themselves. I am worried about Alpine, though. They might actually be lapped.
Always worried about them.
Yeah, fair.
Always.
Especially worried here.
Yeah, I mean, not having strong straight line speed at all means that arguably you need to set up to be good in the straight line, so you overcompensate. But then if you take away any downforce they've already got a minimum of, it's going to be a real issue. I do think, though, that teams should go with the straight line setup for China. It is such a huge overtaking opportunity. I know it's slightly deceiving statistic, but this racetrack holds the record for the most overtakes made, and most of those were made down that over 1 mile long straight. And when you think about the layout of this track, it's only got 3, arguably 4 proper long, fast corners. You've got turns 1 and 2, which I'm counting as one sequence. And then you've got turn, I think it is 6 and 7, which is kind of the very long S section that you go into kind of a heavy braking zone. And then I think it's turn 8 or 9, which is the very long Anting snail-like corner, which goes down the back straight. The rest of the corners are either heavy braking zones or, like the last corner, for example, they're so quick and snappy that having loads of downforce on the car isn't really going to make the difference. So I do believe that the logical decision here is make all your gains going down the back straight and the start-finish straight, stick in the DRS if you can, going down that middle section as well, which has got a tiny DRS zone. And then if you lose a spot in the middle, you'll have it back again come the back straight. So to me, straight line speed, I think, is king here. And I do think that's where you should focus on having a more productive race weekend.
I think it's time for some bold predictions,
Oh, crap. I knew I'd forget that. Benji, I'll do that again and make that seem really seamless.
Yes. You know what? I think we should do some bold predictions.
Gather around, little children, and listen to my song. My F1 bold predictions, and how they'll all be wrong.
I love when the backing vocal comes in on that. It just gets me every time.
Oh, it's like church choir, isn't it? Oh,
Filthy.
Feel blessed.
Right, bold prediction. We're on a great run so far. Sam's got a point, which is a point more than me and Harry. Harry, what have you got for your bold prediction?
I'm going. This man has done well at this track. He likes this track.
I swear to God, Harry, I'm sick of it. I know where you're going with it, and you're taking my freaking bold prediction again.
Lewis Hamilton's on the podium.
Okay, that's not where I was going. Fine.
Lewis Hamilton on the podium.
Yep. In the race, sorry, not in the sprint.
Oh, okay. Yeah, needs to stipulate things like that on this weird, wacky sprint race weekend. So in the race itself, Lewis Hamilton top 3 finish.
Yeah, man's got a good record here. He won the last Chinese GP.
Yeah.
He can drag that boat of a Mercedes to a podium, I reckon.
If it rains, maybe you'll need that.
Well, exactly.
Sam, your bold prediction?
Yeah, fortunately, not the same as Harry's, actually. I take it all back. But mine is the return of the Rick, another man who has done well around here. And I believe...
Return of the Rick.
Thank you. And I believe at some point this weekend, see what I'm doing there, he's going to score points.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's bold enough.
I think it is. Thank you, Ben.
For
And qualified 11th in Japan.
Yeah, man scored no points in 4 races.
Sonoda's mopping them up, though. His teammates mopping them up.
the controversy, guys. Goodness
All
me.
right, fine. You peer pressured me. In the main Grand Prix, he'll score points.
Ben still don't think it's bold enough, do you?
I don't care.
I'll allow it.
I don't care what he thinks.
Oh, dear.
My bold prediction is that I keep predicting these bad teams are going to score points. So I keep predicting that Logan Sargent will score a point or Alex Albon will score in the top 8, and it's just not working. So I'm going to go with like a good team. So I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. He's going to win the sprint.
Ooh.
That's
Okay.
juicy.
I thought you were going to say Charles Leclerc will score a point, and I was like, Ben, come on.
Can I have that?
What, he'll score a point?
You know what? I'll be kind. Top 8.
Sure. Somehow they wouldn't manage that. Ferrari would mess that up.
They do it just for
You
you.
know it wouldn't have. Yeah,
I do it for you.
that is so true.
I got on the radio, Big Vass. Ben Hocking has said that Ferrari are going to score points. Not this weekend, we're not.
Binotto.
Jungle is Vassive.
Spinala. Wicked.
Moving swiftly on to sprint pole, sprint win, pole 1, 2, 3. In that order, as it now is for 2024. Sam, congratulations if you get any of these right. Congratulations if you remember the order. Go on.
Yeah, I also want to say apologies to Hazza, who is running his own mini championship in the Discord of our poll 1, 2, 3 predictions. Harry, I think you're actually leading that little campaign that we've got there. So well done.
Sugar.
Right. Sprint pole, I'm going to say Max Verstappen. Sprint win, I'm going to say Max Verstappen. Pole position, I'm going to say Charles Leclerc. Win, I'm going to say Max Verstappen. Second place, Sergio Perez. Third place, Lando Norris.
Yes, that is a good order. Well done.
Thanks, Ben.
That went in the order of how sessions will go. Congratulations. Harry?
Sprint pole, Charles Leclerc.
Love that.
Sprint win, Max Verstappen. Pole, Max Verstappen. The win, Max Verstappen. Second place will be Sergio Perez, and third will be Lewis Hamilton.
Lovely. I've got sprint pole, Max Verstappen. Sprint win, Charles Leclerc. Pole position, Max Verstappen. First place, Max Verstappen. Second place, Sergio Perez. Third place, Carlos Sainz.
At least we've mixed it up on the third spot.
Daniel Ricciardo in a close fourth.
I'll never. I can say what happened.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see. Well, there's everything that won't happen this weekend, so make sure you don't mark those down. We're going to take our first break at this point. On the other side, we've got some Mercedes chat. Okay, welcome back to the second part of today's episode as we go through Mercedes, who had a great weekend at Suzuka, finishing 7th and 9th, never mind, which, to be honest, is relatively similar to what they've achieved in previous races. However, they came away from the Japanese Grand Prix weekend in a relatively positive mood. The team has struggled, but they seem encouraged by the fact that they were able to make ground on some setup work at the Japanese GP, particularly relating to tyre temperatures. Sam, were you encouraged, and can they make progress in China?
If that performance was encouraging, then me stepping on Lego is downright joyous, because I don't think they understand what good looks like at this point. You finished as bad as you essentially were in every other Grand Prix. The reason you beat a McLaren was because they made a mistake and you forced one of them off the road, and then, it broke the DRS. You couldn't beat Fernando Alonso, and arguably Lance Stroll might have been in the fight with you if he got anything right that weekend. I just don't really, apart from the tyre temperatures thing, I don't really see how this was positive for you. You don't really seem to be understanding the concept. And when you're coming out and claiming that, you wouldn't ever steer away from this car design and this is the way forward, it's quite worrying. And I imagine that Mercedes fans who are sitting there, in all their silverware from the last decade that they are on the grid, like maybe we could get a new piece anytime soon. According to Harry, you might get a third place trophy, but it doesn't feel like it's moving in the right direction. And I don't really see how you're progressing massively and having these leaps and bounds into your opposition. So no, I don't think it's particularly encouraging. I think it was quite par for the course. And even if you found a little bit of good, we've worked out tyre temperatures, you go into a different track and there's different weather and it's a different surface and your car will be set up differently for that track. So the tyre temperatures, get this, will be different. So I'm just not blown away by the concept that you're encouraged, you're feeling good. I think you're just having to say positive stuff to put, I don't know, positive energy into the world. It doesn't feel good to me. They need to make some proper changes. I feel like they need to go in a different direction. Maybe a changing staff at this point, because it's now been 3 seasons with absolutely no inroads and it's looking bad. They're closer to a midfield team than they are the front now at this point. And with that much money, that many resources and that much talent, you should be doing better. And no wonder the likes of Lewis Hamilton are walking away from you, and Fernando Alonso arguably didn't want to come near you. So, no, I was not encouraged. I did not think it was a particularly good weekend.
What do you think, Gary?
Are they saying that the tyre temperature thing was from the race or from practice setup, what they were doing?
Practice setup. So I know they've been struggling quite a lot in terms of particularly rear temperatures, and they called it night and day difference in their car as they went through practice. As Sam mentions, in terms of the results, didn't really do anything, but to them it seems like it was some sort of an understanding exercise.
Okay, I'd like to point the Mercedes team to their first stint in Japan, because that was a load of garbage.
I love that.
Great.
Put it in the bin.
After that, I got to say, and I saw Toto Wolff say this afterwards, that he thinks they could have challenged for a podium based on the second half of their race. If the second half had been as good as the first half, yeah, I think they could have been in that mix. But
Grandmother wheels bicycle.
Well, exactly. Thank you, Gino.
That's a very British reference. That no
Gino
one,
De Campo.
if you do get the
An
Gino,
Italian man.
so true. He's basically British, though, isn't he?
The second half of their race was way more encouraging, but that doesn't mean the first half still wasn't bad. And yeah, on the hard tyre, as they both opted for the restart. They were terrible, absolutely terrible. So I'm not sure what they're that encouraged about. I mean, we can't see the data, but based on their actual race performance, yeah, you can have good times in practice and your setup looks good, but doesn't matter when if you come to the race and it's still garbage. So it's a weird one. This is a fact that I'll credit him. I got off my old man who also read it somewhere. He's not a source.
Papa Eid.
He was telling me that, or he read that the whole like nose side pod concept, like push the fuel tank up. I don't know if this is still an issue. I'm assuming not. But push the fuel tank up, which meant the center of gravity went up, and so it made everything in the car bad. And that's why when during a race, Mercedes would also like always seem to get better towards the end because there's less fuel in it, like sloshing about. I was like, oh my god.
Is that why Lewis came out was like, put me backwards in the car to rebalance the center of gravity?
Yeah, because he was too far forward. He hated where he was sat.
Man, he's not stupid, is he? Fair play, Papa Reed, for putting that one out. That's very interesting.
I mean, I'm a credit him because he told me, but he read it. He didn't make that up himself.
Can we get a phone in, please, from Papa Reed for the correct source?
Yes.
Okay.
It wasn't great, the result, was it? I will say this, though, to be fair to Mercedes, or at least to be potentially fair to Mercedes, which is that, this might be a situation, potentially, where the benefits are not yet seen. Japan, really, we didn't get anything different, but perhaps it is a first step in this journey to actually understanding this car. As an example to that, I mean, we routinely and rightfully really praise Haas for what they've been able to do the first few races of this year in terms of tyre wear. Actually, all of the foundational work, the fundamental work came in pre-season testing when they were seconds slower than everyone else. And I remember at the time we were laughing at them, but actually what they were doing was the right move. And now they're, I wouldn't say reaping the rewards of it. They're still fighting for minor points, but they're way ahead of where we thought they were going to be. there is at least a potential that Mercedes have done something else here. And if they do end up being better later in the season, we could point to this as being the first step on that path of understanding it. Realistically, if this is tyre temperature based, and that seems to be the case, they really do need to get that sorted out now, because even though Japan was not quite unseasonably warm, but it was warmer than I think what we were expecting it to be, and China is, I think, probably going to be about the same as what Japan was. We're still not in the middle of like the European summer yet. The races are going to get hotter. You know, we're going to go to Miami. We're going to get into June and July, and tire temperatures are going to be going through the roof. So if Mercedes can't figure that out now, it's so crucial they figure it out now, because if they don't, they're going to be so ill-equipped when they go into that summer season, and then you got to be worried, because there's not a lot you can do at that point. I still think it's utterly crazy that Mercedes are in this spot, though. Like, we are talking about how they can salvage things and, you know, can they turn this around? The fact that they still have, not like niggles, they have really fundamental issues with the car at this point, it's utterly baffling for a team that's won as much as Mercedes has. Like, you could allow it, like, let's say 2022. 2022 was a shock, but it was, I'm not going to say allowable, but you know what? They didn't get it right. They didn't get 2022 right after years and years of getting it right. Okay, fine. But the fact that we're now over 3 years into this era of F1, and they've still got, not niggles, but just really fundamental things wrong with their car, it does surprise me that we're at this point.
It's very frustrating when rivals are making wholesale changes and making risky choices to try and improve everything internally. And Mercedes seem to be sticking with the same crew and the same direction and altering nothing. And they're not gaining anything from it. Carlos Sainz came out and said last week that he believes that Red Bull's advantage could be wiped away by the next Ferrari upgrades. They brought Freddie Vasseur in, right? That's really encouraging. You look at McLaren, who did an entire structural reset. They've even got rid of a very senior member over the last month who's only been there for 3 months because, you know what, it wasn't working, and they're not going to rest on their laurels and just sit with something not working. They hired Rob Marshall from Red Bull, you know, who was one of the most successful people ever, and brought him in. Aston Martin have developed this giant new factory with wind tunnel and brought in experts from all over motorsport. What are Mercedes doing to keep up with these teams' changes? Nothing. They're sticking with the same design team. They're altering their car in ways they don't seem to understand. And the messages coming out of that team are worrying. They seem to not be fathoming what it is they actually need to do with the car and these regulations to improve. They just seem to be running one way and hoping they reach their destination without a map. And when they don't get there, they go, oh, we'll turn around and we might go the other way and hope that we might get there again. It's not good enough for a team that's got this much resource at their disposal.
Something that Sam's already raised was Toto Wolff's comments regarding 2026 and essentially not ever being able to accept throwing in the towel in this current era in favor of focusing on those 2026 new regulations. Harry, do you think that that is an understandable line of thinking, and at what point might that change?
I probably I think sooner than maybe they are thinking, because yes, they can recover, but are they going to recover in the next year and year and a half, basically?
I mean, if they recover in a year and a half's time, that's
too late.
Then they've got to recover in a year's time. Really.
Yeah, well, that's
the point in being good in a year and a half.
So, I think that's why it will hurt. It will hurt Mercedes, because they've had 2.5 or 2 and a bit years now of pain already, and to throw in the towel on it and admit defeat and focus on 2026 will hurt. But I think they need to look back at what has happened before in F1, and look at themselves. Look what they did for the 2014 hybrid regulations. Now, I appreciate they're slightly different, and I'm not saying they sacrificed 2010 to 2013 because they still won a few races there, but they focused most of their attention on 2014 and reaped the rewards of that for the next 8 years. So I don't know. It would feel unwise. And for Toto, look, I'm not dissing on Toto Wolff here at all because the man's been in charge for a while. But he walked into that team when all the hard work was done. And again, I'm not saying he's...
Whoa.
But he did. Let's be real.
Toto terrorizer.
He walked in at the back end of 2013. He left Williams, sensible. No offense, Williams. And went to Mercedes and picked up the reins from Ross Brawn and co, who obviously then swiftly left. So for Toto, this wasn't trying to be a slagging Toto off here. What I'm trying to say is he's not been in this position before. He sort of walked in, the groundwork was already there, and yes, he's done a great job in maintaining it. That's not an easy job, but he's not been in this position where it's not starting from scratch, but trying to build something back up again. So I think it'd be unwise to say they're not going to throw in the towel yet. I know it would hurt and it's hard to justify, but maybe I think now's the time. If you want to be back on top, as you were, now's the time to start focusing, chuck all those eggs into the 2026 basket.
Sammy, you've already brought up those comments. Would you agree with that?
I mean, yeah, I completely agree with him. I think Harry's entirely right in what he said in the sense that if they do, they're not going to catch up this year. Even if they make proper gains this year, what is it going to be over a second? Are they going to really fight with the likes of Red Bull for race wins this season? It'll be a miracle if it happens. So the earliest they're aiming to be competitive at the front, if everything perfectly falls in line for them, is the start of the 2025 season. Can't see it happening. I can't see Red Bull losing that much of a margin. If it's anyone that's going to compete with them, it'll be Ferrari. At a push, it might be McLaren. So therefore, they're aiming for what? Summer 2025. And at that point, you think, what is the point in trying to win races in summer 2025 if come 2026, it's a whole new concept anyway? Stop what you're doing, put down your tools, go to the drawing board and come up with something that works for these new regulations. The issue with Mercedes is, I'm bringing it up again, I'm repeating myself, is you have essentially got the same team that worked on the current regulations and you have plenty of time to put effort into those. And we saw that Mercedes did. They stopped working on their 2021 car. They stopped working on their 2020 car very early to make sure that they were making gains in this new generation. They went down this side podless design and they absolutely screwed the pooch on it. It did not go to plan. And have they made changes internally? Have they culturally shifted? Is it a whole new team? No, not really. People have had job title changes, but for the most part, it's the same team. So do I trust Mercedes to ditch what they're doing, I don't know, let's say summer 2024 and focus only on 2026? It's a sensible decision, but that team, they've already fluffed it once. I don't know if I trust them to not fluff it again, even with the same amount of time and preparation, and less money than they had the first time because there was no cost cap when they were preparing for the 2021 regulations. So, yeah, 2020 regulations, sorry. So, yeah, it's they should, but I don't know if they can.
It's an odd situation they find themselves in because only a couple of years ago, not only were they winning everything, but they very much had the mentality of it was win or nothing, right? They classified second and third place finishes as absolute failures. And now they're sort of in a position where Toto Wolff is fully admitting Max Verstappen is not going to be caught this year, but at the same time, they're full steam ahead. In which case, what are you full steam ahead towards? Because theoretically, if you're saying Verstappen can't be caught, you're going full steam ahead towards second and third place, which, again, a few years ago, Mercedes deemed that as an absolute failure just based on that's not who we are. We're winners. To now be in that position, only a couple of years later down the line, yeah, that's it's an odd one based on where they were. But yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting if Toto Wolff changes his tone, certainly at the summer break this year, and as we get closer to 25.
I think what's also fascinating is you look at their direct competitors over the period where Mercedes were the dominant force, and you look at Red Bull, you look at Ferrari, they're the two constants. And how did either of those two drop as far back as Mercedes have now for more than one whole season? Ferrari had that one shocker of a year, and other than that, they were always the second or third fastest teams. You could swap them back and forth, but pretty much coming out of every season, they were second or third every single time. None of them were constantly arguably the fifth fastest team now for the second year on the trot. Aston Martin had periods where they were comfortably faster than Mercedes last year. McLaren are still faster. Ferrari are good. Red Bull are winning. what are Mercedes doing with themselves?
Yeah, I'd say with Red Bull at least pre-2019, even though they were in a couple of those years probably the third fastest team, I'd say they were, at least pace-wise, probably further behind Mercedes than what Mercedes are to Red Bull now, in that the gap was just bigger. But certainly since 2019, or certainly since 2020, when Max Verstappen has been, back in the day when he was mopping up third place and second place finishes behind Bottas and Hamilton, since then, Red Bull have not been as bad as what Mercedes are now. And like you say, Ferrari had that massive down year in 2020 when they couldn't get anything right, even by Ferrari standards. But they've been arguably closer than Mercedes have, particularly the last couple of years. Be interested to see when they finish 1-2 this weekend.
Lol.
Imagine.
Lol, indeed. We'll take our second break at this point. On the other side, who's under pressure? Before we get started on our under pressure submissions, we'll all give ours shortly as per usual. There's never been a better time to join our Patreon. It's not something we've ever really mentioned before, but yes, you should absolutely join the Patreon. We, of course, for the weekend coming up, the Chinese Grand Prix will be after the race. We'll do power rankings. So we'll be looking at every driver, scores out of 10, our reasons why. I'm sure there'll be plenty of disagreement. There was a good amount on the Japanese Grand Prix, and something that's going to be up on Thursday. Might already be there, depending on when you're listening, but on Thursday of this week, we've got our historic race review for April. We're looking at the 2005 San Marino Grand Prix, really epic battle for the lead in that race, and we break that one down as our historic race review. So do get involved. I'm not going to give Harry the opportunity to do his normal piece of how much it's worth.
I reckon that's probably worth about £200 a month.
And you know what, mate? We are really proud of the content we put on Patreon. And arguably, I think it is worth about £200 a month. But you know what? We charge barely a 10% of that. Top price, take a guess. It's not 200 quid, much less.
Oh, 150.
Not even close, mate. Divide that by 10 and you're still too much, because it's only $12 as the top price, £9.
You get out of here, Sam. Goodness me.
I'm so far out of here because we've got no cash. It's so cheap. We're throwing the content
Shut the
at you.
front door. That is an absolute bargain. Goodness
Bargain of
me.
the century. You're going to love it, folks. So much content for £9 pounds every month. And that's only the top tier. You can get even more for less.
Goodness, you could blow me down with a feather.
I don't want to do that.
All I can imagine now is like Harry walking into a coffee shop and asking for a coffee and just brandishing like a £50 note. It's got to be worth that, surely.
I'm the person behind the till.
That's how I go into any situation where I have to buy something. I just present far too much money, and then I'm like pleasantly surprised every time.
Here's £1,000. How much is this chocolate bar?
There's a great character in this.
85p.
Man who doesn't understand the value of money.
Oh boy. Well, I'm glad we got through that. Under pressure time. So we have got some Discord submissions coming up very shortly, but before we get there, each of us will submit who or what is under pressure for this weekend. Sam, start us off.
Well, considering that he thinks he's in a different category, I'm going to go with Lance Stroll. It's about time that he steps it up. He's had a couple of duff performances so far this season. Japan was one of them, set the car up entirely wrong. Saudi put it in the wall. And you know what? You there, listeners, on social media, I'm talking to you. We put out a post about how Lance is not doing the business and how he might be one of the bottom 5 drivers on the grid. And a lot of you are backing Mr. Stroll. So for your sake, he needs to deliver. So Lancey boy, you're under pressure.
I'm not biting. Not biting. Apparently he's in contention for the seat next year based on his strong feedback, I think was listed as one of the reasons why.
Yeah, feedback about his dad's dinner that they're having.
Harry, who or what's under pressure?
This will seem like an obvious one because he has been for all season, I guess. But Daniel Ricciardo, to just string a weekend together, my guy. The first 3 races were bad. Japan, I'll be real, looked way more encouraging until 30 seconds into lap 1. Just a whole weekend, string it together. If you believe Sam, he will. But
He's got a new chassis, ain't he?
new chassis because he extinguished the
Hit the button.
extinguished the bejesus out of his last one. Yeah, I know this is quite an obvious one to say, but just this week he just needs a real. Doesn't need to even be outstanding. Just a clean weekend. Pick up a point or two. Like shut everyone up for a while and move on, and then build from there. To Daniel Ricciardo.
And I mean, again, we have to remember a lot of people listening will have never seen a Chinese Grand Prix before. If you haven't seen his move on Valtteri Bottas to win the Chinese Grand Prix,
It's not a move; it's a mugging, my friend.
a mugging is more accurate.
The
but
Met
it is
Police
a thing of
were called.
beauty.
Yeah.
All the way out to China.
They were.
Get on the plane, boys.
Why are they American?
I don't know.
Gosh, so many different police forces all coming to arrest Daniel Ricciardo for some reason.
Ocean's
It's
11.
the NYPD Met.
Hello, Governor. We're from New York.
Good.
I'm going with the hometown hero. I'm going with Zhou Guanyu. Now, in fairness, well, firstly, it's a home crowd. So given his grandstand sold out in like 4 minutes, first of all, that's incredibly impressive. Second of all, could do with a good result, given how many people got them very quickly. I appreciate the team itself might be under more pressure than Zhou Guanyu is himself, but whilst he's been unlucky this year, Valtteri Bottas has been unluckier. And if a few things had gone Valtteri Bottas, not even gone Valtteri Bottas's way, but just not gone against Valtteri Bottas, i.e. pit stops under 50 minutes, Bottas would probably have a few points at this stage, and Zhou Guanyu wouldn't. So I don't think it's getting a lot of attention because they are at 0-0. But in reality, Bottas is doing a much better job and should be getting points. He's deserving them. So I think he's a little bit low key, under the radar, under pressure.
Do you think famously he'll pick up a few tenths because it's the home crowd?
He's not Nigel Mansell.
It worked for Nigel Mansell.
But very similar, Zhou Guanyu and Nigel Mansell.
yeah. Both wear flat caps.
Both fashionistas, both doctors, both talk with a strong accent.
Dr. Zhou Guanyu now? Is that a new new person?
Dr. Zhou, yeah.
Dr. Zhou, good, all right.
Well, those are the people who we think are under pressure. We do have some Discord submissions that this week are unvetted. We have no idea what's going on.
Good luck,
There was
everyone.
a Doctor Who joke there that we could have made that was just like Doctor Who, and we've fluffed it. So get on with the submissions. That's annoying.
Well, at least you didn't draw attention to it. First up, we have Guilherme Pasley.
I think either Lewis Hamilton or Daniel Ricciardo are under pressure because they've both been doing garbage. See you guys.
Yeah, fair enough.
Smash us both there, Harry.
Yep.
They're out on the bins.
Cheers, Guilherme. Next up is Bristol Liam.
All right, lads.
All right.
Yes, that's Harry. That's me.
I got a second. That is Bristol, famously very Bristolian Liam, doing a like a Cockney accent.
I love you, Liam. That is dying.
I was convinced. What are you on about?
I thought I pressed the wrong one. Anyway, right, we'll start that again.
All right, lads. Yes, that's Harry. That's me.
That's me.
Williams, mate, please just bring a car. Daddy Vowels. I'm losing respect for you, mate.
Oh God.
Bye, lads.
Cheers,
You
mate.
sound sad.
Unenthused Bristol Liam there. Right.
Danny Vowell saying that they need to get 3 years of work done within 1 year. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that.
You working them to the bone.
That's like me on my day job. I haven't done anything all week. I need to get a week's work done on Friday.
Good evening, Sam's boss.
People from work do listen to this podcast.
Williams be sleeping. Right, bring the mood up. It's Bungers.
It's the McLaren CEO. Yeah. And the most under pressure for the Chinese Grand Prix is Williams, who believe apparently that if the chassis is built together by duct tape, used wads of chewing gum from the mechanics, and hopes and dreams, that they can eventually be better. Which is not true, because you can't develop a car if it keeps going into the wall and breaking.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Get that in the book.
Write that one down.
So chewing gum, duct tape,
And hopes and dreams.
That's what
Put
this
it all
podcast's
together.
made of.
That's a good name for an album, gotta say.
It's a long one. We'll have to take out all the vowels like Fall Out Boy did.
Next up is Ruth. Sure.
Hi, it's Lee, all the way from South Africa. Under pressure this week. Sla chuckles, la ice cream, la clerk.
Yes,
He needs
ice
to step
cream.
it up. And then a Chinese Grand Prix, because we haven't been here since forever, and everybody forget about our layout. And it's a sprint weekend. And then also the late breaking boys, because they need to inform me who they think is going to do well so that I can do the opposite maybe. Because I need some points. Okay, have a good week. Bye.
I love Ruth. It's
Savage
becoming
Ruth
a
there, isn't it?
it's becoming a bit of a favourite of mine. Or equally,
Fantastic accent.
that ice cream. If anyone gets their hands on it, I need you to send it to me because I
PO
want
box.
to try it.
Because we have a P.O. box. Come on.
And then
We
I'll
do.
have it and Sam won't.
Message me. I'll give you my address.
Good
Oh.
stuff. Next up is, well, it's from Hazard, but there are two people in this, and you can only guess who the other person is.
Right, boys, joint submission here. Who's most under pressure, mate?
No, it's not even Josh. Got to be Charlie and the Carlin. So we're going to speak by science again. Ferrari are going to think they've got rid of the wrong person.
And for me, most under pressure for China, it's got to be Zhou Guanyu. I think the geezer's qualified in P20 for the last 897 races. In front of the home crowd, they've not had F1 there for a bit. Just do better, mate. Cheers, boys.
Cheers, boys.
Charlie LeCharlin?
Absolutely sent me. Charlie McCarlin.
And mainly because, and you'll see this on our social media, Northern Georgia's utilised our P.O. box to send us one can of Carling.
Oh, boy.
Goodness me. Right, that would be all we had time for, but Beef is here, so we better play her.
Hello, hope we're all well. I've had a lovely long weekend with friends and family. Went to Alton Towers yesterday, took my little cousin. She's only 10. She is a nutter. Why did we go on all the big rides? She's crazy. Under pressure. Just for a Chinese Grand Prix not to be average. It needs to be like above average. It's been gone for a while. Show us why we missed you. That's it. Okay, bye.
Good
Good.
stuff.
Alton Towers beef.
Alton beef.
Babysitting Beef.
Babysitting beef. Nice.
And that was the last one, yes.
That was, sorry, Ben. Yeah. You may carry on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much to everyone who got their submission in. Massively appreciate it. And we'll be back with more submissions in our race review, where we'll be looking for moment of the race. But let's move on to some comments from Bruno Firmin, the team principal at Alpine, who has claimed that both Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly are happy at Alpine despite the team's struggles this year. Sam, I guess first and foremost, do you think that's true? And secondly, how might they approach this year? Because both of them are in contract years.
Yeah, this is a really tricky one for Alpine because I think they're very publicly aware of the perception that people have of their team.
Bad.
Bad. And, you know, they're not stupid. They might not be able to make a fast car, but they're definitely not idiots. So when you've got two very talented drivers, you know, they're a very solid pairing, are Gasly and Ocon. They both know how to pull a good performance out. They both won races. They qualify strong. You know, they are a good pair to have for a midfield team. This is a commodity you don't want to throw away quickly because, not to throw shade at Haas, who are doing really, really well and deserve a lot of credit, but you don't want to end up with driver situations like Haas have often found themselves in, where you're either having to pick up X stars who maybe never materialize into something fantastic and hoping that they are going to do a good enough job, or you don't want to go for a double rookie situation where, you know what, it just doesn't materialize and you end up spending a lot of money on crash cars. You have a really solid lineup, and that is probably Alpine's biggest plus point right now. So a couple of things that I think that Famin and Alpine have done really, really well is that, Ben, I'm sure you're going to get onto this, but they've come out and said that the team is absolutely categorically not for sale, which I think is really, really important right now because with the Andretti notes kind of sniffing around, it gives solidity to those two drivers that their job is completely normal. You know, the team is safe. They're not going to get bought out by Andretti or any other team. So it shows a dedication to the sport. It shows that they're going to be on the grid long term. And it shows that actually they might be worth sticking with for a developmental drive that in a couple of seasons, come 2026, for example, they might be making big progress. Equally, it's really, really hard for them to gauge what Gasly and Ocon are going to do because in theory, Gasly and Ocon can absolutely take all the time that they want to put pen to paper. So they need to make that seat feel like it's a bit of a prize. It's a bit of a wanted commodity. They've got, you know, drivers like Jack Doohan, for example, who's in the junior formula. Oh, maybe he might get the seat. You know, you need to make them feel like it's not you can sit around and wait forever to sign whenever you fancy. They need to try and bring some power back because currently I think it's very much in the driver's hands. So it's a tough sell. But I do think that, you know, when you've got two good drivers like Gasly and Ocon, you've really got to hold on to it and do all you can to make them feel special, make them feel wanting, like there's a project there. And it's not just going to be a bit of a, we'll rest on our laurels and we'll see what we fancy doing, you know, in 8 or 9 months' time, because you will lose one, if not both of these drivers.
How do you think that the two drivers should approach this year, Harry, regarding their contracts?
It's a trick. We've touched on this before. It's a tricky one because you'd say wait it out a bit, but where do you go? Where on earth do you go? I get the only way currently is up for them, but there's not many options up. So yeah, this is going to be a tough one for them. I think they're both, you know, Alpine. As I said before, with Alpine, they've got numerous problems, but their driver lineup is not one of them. So I know why Bruno Firmin. Side note. When we say Bruno Firmin, I always just want to say Fuming. Is that weird?
Bruno Fuming?
Bruno, I mean, he probably is.
Right to be.
He probably is fuming this year. Anyway, I see why Bruno Firmin or Fuming is saying these things because he doesn't want his drivers to leave. But I guess for Alpine, it's kind of the fact there aren't many places to go is encouraging and a good thing for them because I don't think Ocon and Gasly have many other options here. So. Yeah, they can probably use it as a bit of leverage for extra cash, bit of extra dollar. But I think in terms of, you know, they've had to put up with this rubbish for a year. Give me some more money in my contract. But the thing I would say to Esteban Ocon is don't sign for another 43 years as a rule.
Doesn't compute.
He only works in 43-year periods.
Well, and I hope he's learnt the lesson from this because he's lucky that this is the last year of this contract in a way, but also he doesn't really have anywhere else to go. But yeah, sign for a little less years because this could easily have happened back in 2021, and you could have had 4 years of this, and that would have been hell. So. He's lucky in that respect that it's only been this year's, but that's been absolutely terrible. But yeah, I would for the drive for both of them. Is Gasly's both? Did Gasly?
Yeah, it's both are up.
Both up.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them.
Do you not think Audi are a bit of a risk for them?
They're a risk, but do you go there now?
Well, obviously you don't go there, but if you pre-sign for 2026, right?
Yeah.
Then it's.
But
I just think there's a lot of trepidation there.
I don't know. I mean, Audi are floating around now, but how much influence are they going to have on who is signed for 25? It just feels like to me whether Audi would bring someone in now or wait until 26 rolls around. I don't know. But it definitely is an option for that. That's probably their best option looking forward. So don't commit. Again, Esteban, when you get your pen out and the contract's in front of you, if the number is above 1+1, if it doesn't say 1+1 and the +1 is an option, don't sign it, my friend. If it says 4, do not sign it.
No.
Ben, you're just looking out for yourself because you run that team.
That's very true.
Before Ben goes down his point, is jeopardation a word I just made?
No, I was going to say, I'm really glad that you've created a mixture of words jeopardy and trepidation because there is a real use case for it.
My dad's going to laugh at me for that.
No, I love it. I'm going to use it.
Jeopardation, folks.
Yeah.
Isn't that a song by, what's it called? Alphabet.
Alphabet, yes.
Jeopardation!
It's the way Alpine feel.
Side note, that's a tune.
Banger.
Absolute banger.
Top tier banger.
Good. I'm really glad we agree on that as well. Firstly, I am really disappointed that the team's not up for sale. I have my £5 note ready to go and everything.
Harry's in there with 40 grand going, how much for this team?
And Alpine are going, no, that's far too much, mate. Put it away.
Harry with 5 trillion. Like, what? It's not worth that?
Doesn't understand any currency.
Yeah. I was going to have a shared bid, myself and Trent Alexander-Arnold, but no, apparently not. It's not for sale. So it is, you're right. You're both right. It's a tough one for both of them. Because there's not a lot going on for them. And like you say, I don't think there's anything other than a sideways move at the moment. I don't think any of the top 5 teams, and when we say top 5 teams, we're essentially limiting to Red Bull and Mercedes at this point, I guess. I don't see them as an option for Ocon and Gasly, which in many respects is a bit of a shame because people will probably call me mad based on recent form on this, but Carlos Sainz is a hot property at the moment, and rightfully so. I don't think there's a lot of difference between Sainz, Ocon, and Gasly. Now, Carlos Sainz has had the opportunities to actually showcase his ability a lot more over the last couple of years. But I really don't think in terms of pure ability, the likes of Ocon is that far off. But of course, he's been stuck in an awful car to the point where he's not able to show what he can do. So I don't think the top 5 is a possibility for him or Gasly at the moment. It is tough to be optimistic when it comes to Alpine, just based on slowness, but also you can't take away, it is still a factory team. And if they get the 2026 regulations right, if they get the power unit regulations right, most specifically, they are going to be the only ones that benefit from it. It's not like, let's say 2014 when Mercedes absolutely got the power unit regulations right. They benefited, but so did Force India and Williams. Now, obviously, Force India and Williams were not in a position to challenge Mercedes, but in terms of pure, and McLaren, I should say at the time, but they still outperformed where they should have been because of that engine. If Alpine get the power unit right, no other team is going to benefit from it. So I think there is at least a benefit to one of these 2 drivers really cementing themselves as the lead core driver for this operation going forward. You've mentioned Audi. Potentially that's where maybe the other one goes. Maybe one stays and one goes. But they are in a bit of an awkward position, like you say. There's nothing else, at least at the moment, there's nothing outside of a move that would be sideways to Audi or Williams or Haas. I don't know. It's not a step forward, right? So it's a tricky one for them both. Let's take our final break of this episode. Got some F1 back and forth after this.
Whee!
I'm buzzing.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. Time for a bit of F1 back and forth.
F1. Back and forth, it's F1. Back and forth, it goes backwards, then goes forth, it's F1. Back and forth, F1.
Beautiful. F1 back and forth. I'm sure many of you heard this already, but Sam versus Harry, I've got a category in front of me. There are 17 correct answers to this question. They'll keep going back and forth until they can't think of an answer or they give an incorrect answer. Got to be honest, this one's straight up disgusting. So I'm going to give you 2 strikes each on this. So 2 strikes and then third wrong answer, you are out. And here's today's category. Since 1970,
I'll have a day off.
17 drivers have led the Drivers' Championship at one point or another and never won a Drivers' Championship. Can you name those 17 drivers?
Someone's got their towels hanging about. Just fancy throwing one in at the start of this.
Harry, you can start us off.
Giancarlo Fisichella.
Giancarlo Fisichella is a good shout. He has led the Drivers' Championship thanks to winning the first race of the 2005 season, the Australian Grand Prix that year. So Fizzy is a correct answer. Sam.
Felipe Massa.
Felipe Massa is a correct answer. Twice he has led the championship. Most recently was Malaysia in 2010. He temporarily had the lead. Back to you, Harry.
Eddie Irvine.
Eddie Irvine led the championship on 3 separate occasions in 1999.
Got a good story about Eddie Irvine.
Can you tell it sometime?
I will. Another podcast. Sergio Perez.
Sergio Perez has never led the Drivers' Championship.
Oh, he was like a point away, wasn't he?
He was close.
In Miami.
Very close.
What a poo head. Sorry, Sergio. That's annoying that you've cost me a strike already there.
Back to you, Harry.
David Coulthard.
Oh, that was my next one.
Yeah, he led the championship very briefly in 1997, and then also won the first race of the 2003 season, so he led in that year as well. Sam?
Juan Pablo Montoya.
Surprisingly, Montoya has never led the Drivers' Championship.
Sick of this already.
Despite being in the fight in 2003 for pretty much the entire season, didn't actually lead the championship that year. Harry?
Oh, no. Who?
That's a horrible noise to make over a podcast, by the way. Don't do it generally. Stop it. Really annoying.
You want another one? Who shall I go for next? I don't think I've got any more left in my locker here.
Oh, I got one.
Did Gerhard Berger lead a championship ever?
He did not. It's a good shout. You'd thought he would, but no. Gerhard Berger has never led the Drivers' Championship. Sam, you've got one.
I hope I do. It'd be really playing out if I'm out. Rubens Barrichello.
Oh, yeah.
Surely.
Not on my list.
Oh, no.
He's never led.
Don't think so.
I hate this one. I was about to swear.
This is a disgusting one.
I'm almost doubting my list at this point because you'd have thought he'd have been on there, but no. Barrichello's never led the Drivers' Championship.
Where'd you get your stats from, Ben? Because the safety car was wrong.
But then he never, unless he didn't win any first races of the season.
No.
And the other time he was close was 2009, but he never took the lead there, did he? Because Button always had the lead.
No, I think, I could be wrong. Button held the lead the entire season, right? He never lost the lead that year. Do you want to have a stab at some other random answers on here?
Bobby Kay?
Bobby Kay, yeah, he led the championship after the Canadian Grand Prix of 2008.
And BMW were like, that's nice. Let's not develop this car anymore.
I love it. It always comes back to that. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Did Valtteri Bottas do it?
Yeah, Bottas won the first race of the 2020 season. He actually led the championship 3 times in that year as well.
Didn't he? He led the 2019 season as well, surely, because he won in Australia.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I've got my note wrong here. Austria 2020 was the most recent of those 3 times.
Oh, I see.
But yes, he, yeah.
And 20. Kimi Raikkonen. Oh, no, because he's a champion.
If 2007 didn't exist, that would be correct.
So I was thinking about 2013 then, but
yeah.
But he was also a champion then. What decades are left, Ben?
You've got a current driver.
Oh Christ!
One driver.
I know who the current driver is.
Who?
It's Leclerc.
Leclerc, yes.
Chuckles.
Bahrain to Miami in 2022, he led the championship. You've got one other from the 2000. Well, he led the championship in the 2010s, but was also around in the 2000s.
Mark Webber.
Mark Webber, yeah, led the championship 3 times in 2010. Everyone else on this list is from the 70s or 80s.
Oh, goodness me.
Jacques Lafitte.
Yeah, I think that is, yes, that is a correct answer. Couple of times he led the championship in 1979.
Did Jackie X ever do it?
You know what? I really thought he'd be on this list, but no. Potentially he might have led the championship in the late 60s, in which case he's just missed out here, but I don't know on that one.
That is so me, Jackie X, in the wrong time zone.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one, though.
All right.
Gilles Villeneuve?
That was probably the most surprising name that didn't come up. No.
Interesting. I've got no more.
I'll rattle off some of the other names. Michele Alboreto, Elio De Angelis, Didier Pironi, John Watson, Carlos Reutemann, René Arnoux, Patrick Depailler, and Clay Regazzoni.
When on earth did Watty lead the championship?
1982, when literally everyone won a race.
1982.
I think I won a race in 1982.
The most generous year of F1.
It really was, yeah. But yeah, like I said, I did warn you. Pretty disgusting.
That's vile.
Do you know what? This is how sad I was. I scrubbed up on both race winners and podium sitters of the Chinese Grand Prix, the gang, just because I thought there might be a chance that might be the back and forth. I've never done that before. I've never done pre-research.
He's done you there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been off-brand for me to do that as well.
No, that's what I thought. I'm taking a punt, but serves me for ever bringing notes to a podcast.
Yeah, well, that was very taxing, very difficult back and forth. I'm looking for a segment that's much less taxing. I'm not sure. Oh, I've got one. And in fact, I think you might be able to call it the greatest segment in all of Formula One podcasting. It is the
LB question of the week.
I didn't download your sound on the soundboard, I'm afraid, Harry.
What was me just saying week?
You saying week.
He's saying a sentence.
That counts.
Yeah, move on. We've been waffling on for too long anyway. Week.
There we go. Question of the week this time around. Thanks to Fernando Alonso's contract extension with Aston Martin, we asked the question: What made him stay? What did Aston Martin do to make him stay?
We had a nice few on Instagram. When I say nice few, I had nearly 100 responses. Alicia said, your other option is Mercedes.
Savage.
Yeah, I mean, that was a nice burn there, whilst equally showing what Alonso's got handled. Luke also said, I think this might be the most liked answer, personal guarantee that he'll never lose to his teammate ever again.
Savage.
Real burn.
This one from Alicia actually made me vomit in my mouth, but it said Lawrence said Lance would also have to call him daddy if he signed the new contract.
Oh, come on now. Come on.
Come on. Do you want to hear another one that made me vomit in my mouth?
Yes.
It's from my own father.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, I didn't see this.
Papa Stroll said, stay with us and I guarantee you some quality time with Mike Crack.
Hey, come on. Excellent work. Well done, Papa Sage.
Great bit of wordplay.
I love comments like that where it's just like, yeah, Sam makes sense.
Yeah, we get it now. Nui, born and bred, has just put the word week.
Yeah,
I did see that.
Valid.
Great name, by the way. I have one from Tyler, which is all caps. Endless gammon.
That would make anyone sign up for years.
You've become an endless gammon if that's what you got.
Made it. Oh, God. I don't know what their name is, sorry, but they've said a walk-in microwave.
I love that.
I love that. There was an answer that actually just about made it. I think they answered just as we started to record. This was from Sergio Cruz, who said they wrote the contract in Ben's handwriting. Yeah, I'll sign it. No idea what it says.
Raph came out and said they let him hear Sam's impression of Toto Wolff without telling him it was a joke, and his mind was made up. I told you it's a good impression.
There's a few of these, but this is from Joe Man Murphy. They promised him that they're switching Stroll for Barry Manilow.
Yeah, yeah. Sinead said the same thing. They signed up Barry Manilow to be his race engineer.
Yeah, Chris May thinks that instead of running a half marathon, I was actually just doing contract negotiations, which I can neither confirm nor deny.
Oh, maybe.
No, I was doing a half marathon. I got the medal.
Far easier.
Way easier. Far less taxing.
Anything else?
I haven't looked on Twitter. Ben, you're usually the Twitter merchant. You found anything?
Twitter merchant. Philip Weber showed him a photo of the Alpine. Yeah, that's pretty terrifying.
There's a few Alpine mentions there. It was a bit savage.
Yeah. I do love any question of the week does come back to Barry Manilow, Otmar's 9 Kids, and Alpine.
Just so every time.
Doesn't matter what the question is.
No.
And that, to be honest, that's a skill from you lot, because to make that relate to every single question is a skill.
Bristol Liam said paid him in terms of Otmar's children. How does that work?
We're not digging into that.
No.
We're not. Ian is his new social media manager. She's a good girl, but I'm not sure that she could work out how a microwave works, let alone a social media profile.
Give us some time.
Showed him a photo of the Alpine. I mean, that would make anyone sign for Aston for another 2 years.
It's so savage. It's so anyway. Follow us on social media, Late Breaking F1 on all of our platforms, and you can join in with Question of the Week. We'll do another one next week.
We will indeed. We're going to be back for the race review, of course, at the weekend, but we've also got a quali review and maybe a sprint review as well. We're going to be here at the weekend with some episodes. We'll see when they land and what they are, but we will be back. I am certain of that. Sam, if you wouldn't mind getting us out of here.
Yes, a full weekend of content. Qualifying, potentially the spring. I reckon we will, but it is early, so we'll see if the neighbours allow us. There'll be a race review, and if you're a Patreon member, you will get, of course, the power rankings for the Chinese Grand Prix. So look forward to that. It's all going to be good stuff. You can join the Patreon. The link's in the description below, as is Discord, where you can join nearly 3,000 individuals from across the world, all talking Formula One and lots of other stuff. So joining, make some friends, have a good chit-chat. We're very active, especially around qualifying, sprint race, and the main Grand Prix. And don't forget that you're going to get your moment of the racing on the podcast as a recording, as a submission, if you do join there and you take part. It's always nice to hear yourself on the show. Thanks for listening. You can follow us on Late Breaking F1 on social media. We're also on YouTube. This has been video recorded. Lovely for our faces to be on a beautiful screen, I'm sure. I think that's it for now. We've waffled on far long enough. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been the man who doesn't understand the value of money.
And remember, keep breaking late.
$1 million for this pound coin.
What?